Hello and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence,
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
and this week we are discussing The People Under the Stairs.
You handed me the microphone as though I'm supposed to come up with a song, but I don't know. Is there a song that is associated with this?
I just wanted you to scream or make some sort of noise. I don't know. So we are recording live from the Vampire Diaries and the Originals convention in Chicago, Illinois this weekend.
Woohoo! We have already met some really cool people, and it's been really fun. And Chi-Town.
So something that's cool is, we're always looking for our people, and we have found our people once again because there are a lot of horror fans here, horror readers, and people who appreciate the Gothic Gifts stuff. So, I love it when somebody runs up and is like, oh my God, I love Leatherface. You don't get that every day.
No, I mean, most of the time it's me in a school setting or something, wondering if any of the other moms like the same things I do, and they don't.
So yeah, it's funny. Well, and I heard, and this is no offense to you because you have colored hair, but I heard a mother say to another mother the other day, well, that mom had purple hair. That was judging her character.
Wow. Well, I actually had an incident where I was volunteering with a couple parents, and the woman one of the moms literally wouldn't talk to me, and I was like, what's happening? And I was talking to my mom about it later, and my mom's she's like, honestly, it's probably because you have purple hair. And that wouldn't even occur to me, but it's what? So anyway, so we're here, we're home where we need to be with the people we need to be around.
Yeah, I'm always surprised when people look cross-eyed at me because of a tattoo or because I have my nose pierced. It's this is 2018. What's going on?
Yeah, I know. It's scary. Let's not dwell on it. At least we don't live under the stairs.
There you go. Speaking of which, this is a Wes Craven movie that came out in 1991. I have never seen it. This is a recommendation that we got through our 1-year anniversary. And it's a 61% on Rotten Tomatoes. It had a budget of $6 million. It brought in $31 million at the box office. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the history, but first I want to know if you ever saw this movie, Meg.
So I feel like now that we're getting to a year of Horror Rewind, it's me just constantly admitting that I haven't seen horror movies and being ooh. And I felt bad that I hadn't seen this one, so I'm kind of glad you hadn't either.
So something that is really cool, I was like, oh my God, it's Nadine and Ed from Twin Peaks. What the heck? But Wes Craven was a Twin Peaks fan, and he saw them, and he's like, I want the two of them cast in my next movie. And he wrote this with them in mind.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was like, how are they both in this movie as a couple? Well, as seemingly a couple, and it's it was perfect. He cast them perfectly, and I can see how he just plucked them out of Twin Peaks. I knew there had to be a story behind it.
The other thing that's perfect is that Wes Craven based this on a news story that he read. Jordan Peele cites this movie as an influence in his life because Wes Craven took these, what you would imagine as the good guys, these uppity white people in the suburbs, but they're actually the baddies. And usually, he said, people of color are portrayed or perceived as bad guys, while white upper class people are the good guys, but these white upper class people are the real monsters. And it was based on a story of where weird stuff was really happening in a suburban home.
I love it. I was blown away by this movie. I absolutely loved it. So that's my stance on it. And yeah, the way that it's sort of flipped around like that, especially in 1991, it completely blew my mind. And right away, my heart was just bleeding for Fool. And yes, I love, I'm always harping on complicated characters, and I love that they're there to steal things. I think that automatically makes them interesting. And not only that, but they made sure to show their home life and who they are before that. It wasn't like they just came in and they were these masked men and we're supposed to identify with them all of a sudden. It was showing their neighborhood and their life, and also he goes by Fool, but his name is Poindexter, and she calls him Dexter, which is my son's name. So right away I was just a bleeding heart.
So cute. And I knew that I recognized this actor from somewhere, Fool, and I looked it up on IMDb because it was bothering me when I was watching it, and he's from Mighty Ducks, which was the hockey movie with Emilio Estevez, filmed in Minnesota, set in Minnesota, and so I was like, yes, that's where I know him from, and that was like a nice callback to my childhood as well. Ving Rhames is in it. This is pre-Pulp Fiction. Yeah, pre-Pulp Fiction, so like that's awesome. And I think it's such a great premise. I don't know why I never saw this movie because I too was blown away and I really liked it. And I love that these people under the stairs, they're not the bad guys. They have been monsters that are created because of the real monsters, which they're brother and sister.
I know, that was a great twist when it was like, they're not a couple, they're brother and sister. And his name completely went out my head, but the guy from Twin Peaks is the baddie in Silver Bullet that we discussed before, and he's just like, why did I not see him in more movies? Like, he's such a good bad guy. And she's amazing. And okay, so let's discuss, what did you think of the character of the daughter? And her character name is out my head right now too, but what did you think about sort of her whole life and how they set that up?
It was so well done, and she was a sympathetic character. Interesting. It reminded me a bit of Carrie because I feel like Carrie was trapped in just the craziness of her mother, and this girl too. Like, she had no choice. And then the guy who's cast as the very interesting looking fellow, we'll put it that way. That was a fascinating character because they're actually friends, and you would think, oh, this is the monster. He's the bad guy, but he's not. He's helping her. Oh, it's so good. There's so many levels and layers to it.
Yeah, they're just like subverting expectations left and right of who you should be scared of and who the bad guy is. And also just the intricate nature of the house was amazing to me. That was one of my favorite parts. The house itself was a character. Just like the idea that there's like slides and chutes and secret passageways. And I don't know, I've always touted rural Gothic, and suburban is part of that. And it's this idea that there's this deep seated underbelly of sort of suburban life. And what a great example of that. And this couple that is seemingly perfect, I guess, on the outside, and then how Fool and Ving Rhames' character sort of get in there and really see the truth. What did you think about Ving Rhames? Because I think at one point he saves himself and he pushes Fool out of the closet, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's also a complicated, flawed character. Like, we don't really know what we would do in those situations. I know we would all say that we would jump into Harambe's cage and save our child, but what would happen? So I think it was really interesting. The other thing that I love about this, as you were mentioning, the house being a character, they get trapped in there. Like, they wanted to break in, but now they can't get out. And I think one of the lines is, I don't want to break in, I want to get out, or something. I'm not trying to say, and I don't know what it was, the line. It reminds me of the movie that came out a couple years ago called Don't Breathe, where they go in to rob this guy, but then they get trapped. And he's blind, but he knows his house really well, and they have to be so quiet. And that had a really icky scene at the end. I won't spoil it for you, but we were watching on an airplane, and Meg just had to, stop her screen because the guy next to her, she didn't want him to, I don't know, see what was happening.
I didn't want to corrupt the poor guy next to me. This movie, I was just watching it with a smile on my face the whole time, and I was like, why have I never seen this movie? What about it made it so I didn't take that VHS off the shelf at Blockbuster? I don't know, but it was such a delight. And the house itself, the whole idea that they're trying to have this perfect child. That's another thing that was very interesting. And they're trying to make this girl into this perfect child. She's never left the house, as far as she explains. She doesn't even really know there's a world outside of the house. And that's such a powerful, obviously there is the idea of race in this movie, but there's also sort of a gendering feeling about that too, or sort of thinking about how she's this female child that they're trying to make perfect, and part of that is not understanding the world outside. And then this idea that these people downstairs are all sons that I guess rebelled in some sort of small way. I could see how this would be like a very triggering movie if somebody was like physically abused, because the parents were very scary.
They were. There was a lot of scary moments, and they're just creepy. Like Ed and Nadine. I mean, Ed isn't creepy in Twin Peaks, but Nadine is very off, and they brought that to this character. Or she brought it, or it was written that way. It was perfect. You know, when you were talking about keeping her and she never had contact with the outside world, it reminds me of a few months ago when that family was discovered to have like, what, 14 kids or something, and they were malnourished and they were not in contact. Like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? I haven't heard definitively like the outcome of that. Have you heard anything?
No, I think right now they're like in a lot of therapy and trying to help them and stuff. So they're kind of on the DL right now. But yeah, I mean, this is a great example of a movie. There's not really a supernatural element in this movie. Like, this is, which I didn't realize. I thought this was a more supernatural movie when I went into it. So, but yeah, this is true horror. Oh, I'm just remembering the dog dying when he accidentally stabs the dog because he's trying to stab them. I hate that. Even though the dog was vicious, I still don't like that. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to navigate through, and this idea of the perfect child and the abuse and sort of Fool being in this what he would probably consider like, where I'm sure a lot of children in his situation would be like, oh, I want to live in a house like that. And then he realizes, oh, the grass isn't always greener. And that's putting it mildly. But I don't know. There's just so many things to consider about this movie. And I can see like a lot of college papers written about this because I just feel like there's so much to explore. And it made me a bigger Wes Craven fan. Like, I'm like, okay, wow, that was cool.
So, you know, I also agree. Like, we love and respect Wes Craven, obviously, but I'm like actually more excited to go into Phantasm when we're going to review that soon, knowing that People Under the Stairs exists, because it's opened my eyes. Like, he's not a one-trick pony or whatever. This is very nuanced. And the other thing I read, he also based this on a landlord in LA. He based this on a landlord in LA and the conditions that Fool and his family were living in. You know, he read people were really living like this, and people probably still do. And an author, a writer, a film creator being able to bring real issues to the public and bring things to light, I think that's so important. And he could use his fame and power for that. I really respect him for that.
Yeah, I agreed. And I really like the idea that this was from the perspective of a child. But it wasn't done in like a twee sort of way. Meaning that, you know, it wasn't done in a way that was talking down to Fool, or, I mean, sometimes when things are from the perspective of a child, I don't know, there's not a lot of care taken to their character. They're just a kid. And I felt like he was a fleshed out character. I felt like his relationship with the little girl was just so earnest, and he really wanted to help her, and he just had a good heart. And I just loved it.
You know, he reminded me of Our Boys, because I feel like Our Boys would be like, oh my God, like, we need to get you out of here. You know, not to put that in perspective, but maybe it gives us a little bit of an insight. Now I sound like a Meninist. Like, I have a wife or a daughter, I understand. No, but like putting it in that, like, oh, he's a kid about our son's age. And like, yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the ending? Because I thought that was so great. I love when the money, and I mean, obviously there's this great sort of ending with the climax and blowing up the money, which of course is like so symbolic. But then literally the money is raining down on the people that this couple hurt by being these like slum lords.
It was so fascinating. And yeah, they were the landlords too. I forgot. No, it was great. It was perfect. It couldn't have been a better ending. Like, literally raining down money and they can get their revenge. Oh, the other nuanced thing that I appreciated that is so current, but it was also relevant back then, is when the police come, they just assume, oh, this family, everything's fine because they're the white upper class people. There can't be anything going on that's wrong in there, right? And yet they're trying to scream to get out. And nope, it should be fine.
Yeah, and that's a great thing that Jordan Peele, I can see the influence that Jordan Peele had in Get Out, because when I saw Get Out in the theater and the cop car pulled up at the very end, everyone gasped because everyone knew that that was not good for the main character, right? I mean, usually when the cavalry comes, it's like, oh, but what a great way to explore the idea that just because that's the way for us white people, that's not how it is for so many others. So it was really, that was just, yeah, I can definitely see the influence there.
Yeah, perception and perspective on default and what we consider quote unquote normal or regular or an average day does not look the same for everybody, and especially people who are in these disparaged groups like minorities or women or just whatever you're dealing with. Okay, so in the news currently is this incel business, involuntary celibacy, and like we were just watching a clip from an old movie, and it's like perspectives had changed within the past 15 years. Like we can see now that like things that were so sexist and so racist or so blatantly not acceptable, and it's okay to admit like, oh, I used to like that and I used to think it was funny, but now I can see how that's not okay anymore. But I feel like this movie was trying to open our eyes already back then. It was so good.
I know, it's like, wow, you look at it and it's 1991, and I think about how I was 7 in 1991, and I think about I wonder if I had watched this movie, if anything would have sank in, since I didn't get the chance to watch it. But yeah, it's like artists have been trying to like make these points for so long. I think with the advent of social media, it's been a lot easier because then people can start theorizing and sharing their ideas and all of that. But yeah, it's really cool to think about how this movie came out then, and it was like, hello. And I'm so excited that it inspired Jordan Peele, because now he's making these great movies with these sort of themes in it. And I don't know, I just came out of that movie, I was just smiling, and I was just like sort of, I was talking about how I was giddy from the gore from Demons. I was giddy from just the, like you said, nuance of this movie. And I will definitely be recommending it to everyone.
I agree. I did not know it existed, and where has it been all my life? Like I said in our one year episode last week, there's these influences and these movies that touched my life, and the biggest regret I have is that I didn't come to this one sooner. And I don't know what my problem was. I think I just missed it when it came out, and then I just never went back.
I will probably freely admit, as a little white girl, I might have looked at it and said, oh, I don't know if I could identify with that. And that's the problem. And that's why it's really important that these movies exist, because we have to sort of go through that and be like, no, I can. And then it's frustrating, because it's like, oh, I would have loved that when I was a kid.
Yeah. That's the great thing about horror, is that we go in and we're made to feel uncomfortable, but when we're made to feel uncomfortable for the right reasons, I mean, I love the wrong reasons too, but when we're made to feel uncomfortable for the right reasons, like Get Out made us feel uncomfortable in this movie, for social change, that's magnificent. And like The Shape of Water, I'm going to go back to that one too. That you haven't seen it yet, have you? I won't give anything away, but it makes us feel uncomfortable, but it opens our eyes to the world.
And like, it's cheesy, but isn't that the whole point of all of this? Yeah, there's the entertainment, and this movie has some really great, just like entertainment, just popcorn moments in it that are really cool and fun and scary. But isn't that the whole point of art, is to like relate to people that are not like us, and to like find that empathetic connection?
Yeah, there's a point to art. So we need to rank People Under the Stairs on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect movie. We need to pick something from the movie to use as a rank. Do you have anything in mind?
Vicious Rottweilers.
Okay, so out of 0 to 10 vicious Rottweilers, how many do you give People Under the Stairs?
I give it a 10 because there's honestly nothing that I could pick apart and say, like, I didn't like this. It met all the sort of criteria that I would look for in a horror film.
I also give it a 10. This movie blew me away. You know, what I meant to say earlier was it had a really good balance of horror and comedy, which a lot of movies aren't able to pull off or do well. And when this had such serious and deep and dark subject matter, I was totally surprised that they were able to pull it off.
Yeah, that is a tricky tightrope. I mean, humor is the absolute toughest thing to inject into anything. And there was, like you said, some really deep, dark, abusive stuff going on in this. So the fact that they were able to do that is pretty great.
I loved it. So if you haven't ever seen People Under the Stairs, like we're the fools, then you need to check it out. And if you haven't watched it in a long time, revisit it through these 2018 eyes, this lens, because you'll not believe how ahead of its time it is. It's time for our fast forward segment. Meg, what do you want to talk to us about?
Okay, so I want to talk about a movie that you and I actually watched when we were doing another con, and we were staying in a hotel, and we were like, what should we watch? And it's on Netflix, and it's called Nails. And it's starring, I believe her name's Shauna McDonald, and she is the star of The Descent, which is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And we kind of just started it, and we're like, oh, well, you know, we'll just check this out. And it's a UK developed movie. Or is it Australian? No, I don't know. It's one of those. And the concept, I think, spoke to us because it was about a woman who is paralyzed, and she's in her hospital bed. And basically, I don't want to give too much away, and also, it's recent. It came out in 2017, and it has a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 4.6 out of 10 at IMDb. But I thought it was good. Like, we were kind of talking in the beginning, and then we saw the creepy image, and I think we both just immediately shut up, and we were like, "Oh my god, okay, this is happening." So, basically, what I really liked about it is it sort of harkened to some like interesting true crime that I like about sort of murderous nurses. And it has a supernatural element, and it just has some really creepy imagery in it. And her character is like going through something where she sort of like thinks her husband's cheating on her. And so she's kind of got like this sort of great sort of background story. And then, of course, obviously being paralyzed. So she's not a flat character. And yeah, I don't know, what did you think about it? Did it sort of usurp your expectations?
Absolutely. And as soon as we saw what the quote-unquote creature or the scary imagery was, we knew that was going to haunt us. And when the lights went out that night to go to bed, all I could think about was this creature thing. I'm not going to say, because just watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those just visual, like some movies are, you know, really good with dialogue or humor or nuance of cultural things and all those things. This was just a great visual sort of movie where you're looking in every dark corner like, oh my God. And there's just some really good creepy elements. Nails refers to somebody who like collected little girls' fingernails. So it sort of has a good like fusion of sort of a true crime feel and a supernatural feel, which I love, love, love. So I would recommend this movie. I thought it was good.
I would absolutely recommend it as well. And the way I can describe watching this movie, it made me physically cringe, made me physically like ball up and want to get away from the television in a good way and like put my blanket over my face. And I love when a movie makes me feel that way.
I know, yeah. They did such an amazing job. Okay, so now I'm going to change the subject, and I'm going to ask you how you feel about Ash vs. Evil Dead being canceled.
So I was able to talk about it a little bit in our 1-year episode last week. And I said, since Bruce Campbell's fine with it, I'm going to be fine with it too. Because, you know, the parent, the leader of the family, you follow their lead, and he is the leader of this parade. And hey, if he says, Ash, it's time to retire, I'm okay with that. Obviously, I would live the rest of my life watching that show, new seasons, until the day he died, in a wheelchair, whatever. Like, I would watch Ash until he was an old man. Like, in Bubba Hotep. But I'm going to be thankful that this existed for as long as it did.
Well, and I agree. I'm going to be thankful that we got 3 seasons and they were all wonderful. And the finale was amazing. And although it made me want to see what happens next. But here's my feeling about it. I think that Bruce Campbell is hurt right now because Ash has always been like his character that never got canceled, so to speak. I feel like he is hurt right now. And I feel like he is reacting from that space. I'm saying this like I know him, but I feel like he could change his mind because we have been to cons. We were at a con 16 years ago where he said Ash would never come back and we would never see Ash again. So I feel like if this is his retirement, that's okay because we've been graced with so much, but I feel like maybe he's being a little quick to say it right now. And if Netflix or somebody picked up the show, I feel like, how could he say no?
Yeah, I'm just not going to hold my breath because I feel like I don't want any sort of false hope because this was already too much to ask for. Like, I can't even believe that it actually happened, that we got a TV series. Like, what? When I actually think about it, this is nuts. What a time to be alive.
I know. We're always saying that we control the universe because, like, the X-Files came back, Ash vs. Evil Dead, so many things. But yeah, I'm so grateful for the 3 seasons we got. They were all amazing. Oh, and P.S. I just love Pablo and Kelly. They're so cute. I know they're not as important, but they're really cute. And yeah, and we got to see him with a daughter, and it was the last episode we got to see Ash like have some emotion, and yeah, but I feel like maybe Bruce Campbell's just a little stung right now, and maybe I can hope for more. I feel like you're protecting your heart because you don't want to hope for more and then it not happen. But I have a little glimmer of hope.
Yeah, I'm definitely protecting my heart. And you know what? I'm living through, he's got a new Instagram where he's just sharing his personal life. And he's been in Amsterdam and he's been smoking pot and like drinking glasses of scotch. Like he's living his best life. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I don't know if it's actually scotch, but it's a glass of alcohol. I sound like I'm from Pulp Fiction now. Like a glass. Okay. So, hey, horror fans, this was our first episode taking a suggestion of yours, and you did not disappoint us. We can't wait to watch more movies that you've recommended. So until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye, everyone.